Welcome to my essential philosophy readings. Today we are examining Plato's philosophy and its writings in dialogue form. And this would be our subject of reviewing today, and I do hope that you will enjoy our reading and presentation. As said yesterday, Plato was not only a philosopher, but he was a poet, not a mystic. He was a poet in the sense that he wrote formal verse and is the author of one of the most notable of the Greek epigrams. Also, beyond all that, as the author of the dialogues, he was a philosopher poet exercising consummate artistry in his presentation of ideas. In this respect, he quite much differs from Lucretius, Dante, and Pope, and some others who have attempted to set forth in verse systems of thought, not their own. If we put aside the requirement that poetry must be written in meter, Plato is one, surely, of the supreme poets of the world as well as of Greece. He has a place alongside Homerus, Aeschylus, and Dante, although no one of these men is also a philosopher. But his poetic insight has often been confused with mysticism, even with mysticism's most obscurantist manifestations. His discussion on the one and the many, the doctrine of love and eternal beauty, the demiurgos, and similar matters have all been mistakenly used by mystics and occultists as grounds for their own misfortuned and misunderstood doctrines. Plato has been a source of inspiration to many types of mysticism, but his writings have been repeatedly misread. This misunderstanding has been greatly promoted and popularized by the writings of Philo and Plotinus. Philo claimed that Plato's ideas and the biblical angels are one and the same. And Plotinus's mysticism is actually called, as we all know today, Neoplatonism. But Plato saw the world to be intelligibly formed. That means intelligibly structured. That is, he held that system pervades all things. In order to indicate the nature of that reality, he resorted to story, to metaphor, and playfulness, which have given comfort from time to time to some kind of esoteric writers. But the difference between Plato and the mysticism that has been attached itself to his philosophy is essential. Plato's aim is to take the reader by steps with as severe a logic as the conversional method permits to an insight into the ultimate necessity of ratio, of reason, and he never hesitates to submit his own ideas to the harshest critical scrutiny. He carried this procedure so far in the Parmenides that some commentators have held that his own doubts in this dialogue prevail over his affirmations. But the beliefs of mystics are not products of critical examination and logical clarification. They are, on the contrary, a series of apprehensions, flashes, flashbacks based on feelings, devotion, sentiments, denying the rational order. The mystic's report of his experiences are beyond discussion in as much as they are subjective and as much as they are emotional. They must be accepted by one who wishes to believe them as a matter of faith, not knowledge. Plato's view of the world is that of an intelligible system that man can know by disciplined intellect alone. He was, in fact, the founder of logic, a logician and a poet, but he was not a mystic. He never exalted feeling above reason. In several series, Plato was an aristocrat, but not in the some kind of opprobrious sense of some of his critics. His family on both his father's and mother's side was a distinguished one and had produced men sufficiently able to assume the obligations of leadership. Plato accepted the responsibility of his inherited position. His dominant aim was to prevent the further disintegration of Greece. Two courses were open to him, either the assumption of public office or the re-establishment of the clarity of the Greek intellect, which had become corrupted by many misfortune influences. The fate of Socrates perhaps suggested to him that his special strength lay in the restoration of the Greek view of life. This specific and very unique modus vivendi and his position in the Republic is that good government can be conserved only by statesmen with knowledge in proportion to their task. In the laws, he attempted a more direct approach through the formulation of a specific legislative program, and he was also aristocratic in the lifelong discipline with which he held himself to this task. He is viewed that the final stage of the statesman's education should not be undertaken before the age of 50 would have little support today in conjunction with our desperate efforts at mass education. In Plato's hands, aristocracy meant the rule of the best, not of the elite, but of the best from whatever class they come. The able were to receive special training for the responsibilities requiring great ability. The less able were to perform the tasks suitable to their ability. And Plato's political theory is some kind of an implication of the system of nature, and to call this philosophy aristocratic is meaningful only in the sense that nature is itself aristocratic. But to call any philosophy aristocratic in the sense of class interest is meaningless. Preoccupation with the interest of one class to the detriment of others is not philosophy. Philosophy is disinterested, or it is not philosophy. When ideas are manipulated for personal ends, for class or group interests, the name for this in Plato's day was sophistry. It was against this that his dialogues were directed. To accuse Plato of being in league with the sophistic forces that undermined the classical world is an instance of the more subtle misrepresentation of his position. Plato's disinterested pursuit of knowledge has not only made the word Platonism synonymous with the word philosophy, it has marked him as the aristocrat of aristocrats, the paragon of excellence emulated by high-minded men for over 2,000 years and more. In his dialogues, Plato appears to address himself to particular topics, and in no one place in the convention says that does he set forth a complete system of philosophy. This circumstance has prompted the view, especially during the 19th century, as we all know, that the dialogues display an evolutionary development, that Plato gradually felt or thought his way to a final position which is displayed in the later writings. It has also led to the belief that as a philosopher he must have put forth a formal system, and that is now lost to us. We know that he lectured at his academy, And we have the authority of Aristotle that these lectures constituted the philosophy of Plato. It is therefore argued that Platonism as a formal system was expounded in the lecture room very much in the manner of Aristotle. It may be so, but the notion is conjectural. The evolutionary view of the dialogues is also difficult to maintain. In them, the same thoughts appear again and again, expressed in different words, in different contexts, and with varying emphasis. Plato was the culmination of several centuries of Greek speculation, and he took full advantage of the insight which his predecessors has developed. But speculation assumes intelligibility, the insight that the world is system, is organic, therefore both orderly and both alive is the Greek view as far back as we have records. Because of this previous work in philosophy, he was able relatively early in life to see the world as an entirety and to grapple with its implications. The Greek organic view stressed a living entirety made up of members. Plato's dialogues dealt with increasingly difficult problems, but there is no shift in his convictions. His method throughout is one of exploration, of clarification, of a structure, but the same insight dominates and the same principles recur. The world which Plato's philosophy had in mind, and this worldview it was displayed in his dialogues, is quite clear when the dialogues are seen as a whole, as an integral part. It is not stated all at once or in any one place, and it is unfolded gradually, step by step, and its implications are gradually explored. The important point is that the dialogues as a whole are alone a statement of his position. Plato was fully aware of the value of system in the search for knowledge, of the desirability of stating as clearly as possible the principles on which the inquiry turns. He chose a method quite distinct both from that of the positivist science of the present day, which purports to start with the facts, and from that of the deductive method of the system builders of the 17th century. But his approach on that account is no less rigorous and no less valid. His system unfolds as a flower unfolds, and halfway in its development we see its center, the republic holding the many petals very firmly. Later, when the system has fully flowered, has been fully opened, its periphery may well be said to be the laws. He does not treat the various topics of his discourse, such as ethics, psychology, epistemology, as meaningful in themselves, but as organic, interrelated subjects, meaningful only as variations upon a single theme. And in this very respect, he differs from scientists who see the different departments of inquiry as having their own special components. We all know that at the heart of Plato's philosophy is the doctrine of ideas. It's the great discovery in the history of philosophy, and although it is the subject of extensive discussion in accounts of Plato's thought, we may say the actual amount of space devoted to it by this name in the dialogues is scanty. Nevertheless, it is the basic assumption behind everything he wrote. Thus, Plato's technique combined example with exposition, and to grasp fully what he intended to say, About the theory of ideas, the dialogues must be understood as acts of knowing, examples of how our knowledge should be acquired and how it is acquired. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned. See you next time.